Oh yeah, for reference, when I went to the washroom earlier, I had a mocha smoothie. Like I made a kind of an ice cap type smoothie, right?
In the
And then
washroom?
no, just like earlier before we started talking. And
Damn,
then
that would have been awesome. If it was in the washroom, like a whole bar setup or something, like your own
wouldn't that be
pers-
interesting?
your own
No, but here's the
personal
thing. Here's the
Starbucks.
thing. You know when it comes when you drink a coffee and then you go to the washroom after, and you know what you just had because you can. As I said, my urine smells freshly brewed. Just
Freshly brewed. God damn. Okay, all
I guess you got your clip for this episode, right?
right. Freshly brewed.
I didn't get it. By the way, I haven't put up an audiogram for the last episode just
No,
for
I
reference.
saw that too, but damn, freshly brewed.
The opinions expressed in the following are those of its participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the producers and the Six Talk Podcast Network. Also, the following contains mature material and mild language, which may not be suitable for all audiences. Discretion is advised.
For Saturday night, September 25th, 2001, presented by Anime North, this is episode 51 of the Anime Roundtable Canada. Good evening from 6 Points, 10 minutes south of the Anime North compound in the Toronto West End. Mike Nicolas, James Austin, Mohamed Sharmarke, and Geoff Greig around the virtual table with you. Kevin Ing will eventually join us, or so we're led to believe. He's partying it up on the first weekend of vaccine passports here in Ontario. But a quick reminder.
As is his right as a fully vaccinated individual.
Yes. A quick reminder that we want you to have your say. So go old school. Anime Roundtable at gmail.com. Socials on Twitter and Instagram at Anime Roundtable. Archive animeroundtable.com for show notes and past episodes. And in a dream cloud, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Discord. Okay, I want to start off as we begin taping this evening. We had to start now. It's 10:40 Eastern time as we're taping this. So we wait any longer for Kevin. It's not going to be September 25th anymore. But as we begin taping tonight, I'm watching to my left, now on mute, the Overwatch League Grand Finals, which is right now turning out to be a rout between the Shanghai Dragons and the Atlanta Range. Shanghai, as of this game break, and as we begin taping, are up 3-0, one map away, and they will win the 2021 championship and possibly and likely change one of the great narratives in esports after finishing the first season back in 2018 on an 0-40 record, running it all the way back to a championship like this. I get it, there's different players too. But within it, one of the discords I kept up with over the last week was Emily Tang's Discord, Emily Tangerine. So fellow Overwatch League fans have been talking with her. Emily Tang, just for reference, is the Chinese English language correspondent for the Overwatch League broadcasts, specifically with the Chengdu Hunters, because that's the only or Chinese team within the Overwatch League, at least with Chinese players. So she's their Chinese translator. And within it last night, I kind of got into a bit of a debate with one of the people on their Discord about the merits of what Shanghai might do tonight in becoming the champions after struggling for the initial season. And we came to the conclusion it was a bit of an apples and orange argument because there's been so much turnover within that team, and hell, eSports sees so much turnover too in terms of the number of players who go in. But then I started to think we're talking a little bit also about just culture. Remember, I'm trying to talk about being an Overwatch League fan or watching esports in general as somebody who watches traditional sports. So in many respects, I'm going into a realm, a culture that is still somewhat foreign to me as a traditional sports fan. Esports fans probably are viewing this completely different in my world. And that's in many respects, maybe that's sort of what we're seeing in other parts of anime fandom too. So I'm kind of reflecting on this in terms of, me as a regular sports fan watching this. Remember, I got into we got into this conversation years ago, James, when we first came back because we were watching Overwatch League when we started version 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I got into watching Overwatch League, if only because its presentation felt a lot more in tune or felt a lot more polished and felt a lot like a typical Western sports broadcast. But within it was always this debate about, well, there are fans within it. There are esports fans who really don't care about this wider mainstreaming, this reach for a wider audience, who don't like to see anybody fuck up with what's been built already. And I think that dynamic may have played out in my little debate with this fan. So I don't know, am I approaching this right or wrong? And that's where that's the reflection I have as I'm watching the Overwatch League Grand Final. Or is this, or really, there's no answer here?
I don't think there really is an answer. And as we said, esports is in its infancy, and it'll be interesting to see, especially the Overwatch League, to see how it continues on, because they've had their issues with their corporate masters, so to speak, and this could kill them and hurt them when it really hurts, and especially if sponsors do continue to pull out. But it's definitely not like traditional sports, for example, the 76ers and quote-unquote the process. Because, as you said, they definitely change in a flash, some of the players, right, for esports.
Well, yeah, I mean, in Toronto, here in Toronto, we have our Overwatch League team as well, and they turned over their roster mid-season practically. Well, so did the Vancouver Titans. That was another story altogether.
Could you imagine doing that in any other sports league? The unions and everything else would probably be like, there'd be holy hell.
Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of but where I was just the dynamic between new fans or new watchers and then the traditional watchers. In many respects, that isn't that much different from where we are within anime fandom. There's my segue. So to that end, well, first of all, is there a thought on the whole esports thing? The esports dynamic from either Mo or Geoff?
All of these esports athletes, they're over 18, right? Because otherwise, with China's laws, I'm not sure how good these teams are going to be in the future.
It depends on the league and the games, but in this case, yes, Overwatch League players have to be over 18.
Okay, so that'll be.
But they can be signed to a roster. They can, if you're under 18, you can still be signed and training with them, but you can't be actually playing.
Okay.
I honestly think that whole, was it 3 hours of gaming a week or something policy they're trying to put into place? I mean, it's one of those things that I feel like, in a couple of years they'll probably rescind it or something, or figure out it's dumb and backtrack.
Well, no, they just find ways around it, Mo. That's what they always do with these type of things, but it's just going after things for their own reasons, right?
Right. So, but as I said, it was just the culture within esports that got my attention, and it made me think about the similarities within the culture that's presently within anime fandom. So to that end, in the couple weeks since the 50th episode, first of all, I can't say we've done too much. Can't say we prepped up the greatest amount, but I know James pointed out an article for us on Anime News Network. Kim Morrissey's article from September 4th. In a struggling anime workplace, cool Japan feels like a joke. This morning, Kevin, and maybe he'll speak to it a bit later if he's able to join us in time, he forwarded me a tweet by Daryl Surratt, which read, quote, "Want to see modern geek culture firsthand? Look at all the posts of people begging, pleading for the big corporation to win out over the estate of the original creators because they're convinced there will be no more media ever if the estate wins and has to gasp, be paid." And then a third article is once again from Anime News Network about, well, the headline being, Manga Plus editor says the service is growing fast, but translation costs are high. Okay, all three of these articles are, of course, different stories. I feel they have a relation. They have a common thread in many ways. And that comes back down to, well, the industry's evolving again. Sometimes, and it doesn't totally know how to handle it right now. Or at least it's a reflection of the various crossroads with the increased popularity. Morrissey's article kind of reflected on how cool Japan right now might be missing the point, at least the key point. It seems to be caring about everything surrounding trying to capitalize on the current popularity of Japanese pop culture, specifically anime, trying to boost tourism, trying to boost incomes for various places, but it seems to be missing it where it's needed the most. And that's maybe the industry itself. Because it kind of it tries to remind us the people within the industry are basically on the poverty line, below the Mendoza line, and the high turnover, which isn't good. We've had this conversation before. With all these deals going on, it's tough to. It's almost becoming unsustainable to meet all these contracts, to meet all this output. So where does the line between quality and quantity have to be drawn? In the case of Surratt's tweet, that was interesting because, well, there's the corporate stuff talking, right? Mo,
just pay them more. I mean, come on.
And
that's part of it. And the thing is, you have to
where the money goes too, right?
Yeah.
Because, for example, Cool Japan, they made note of some of the bad investments they had before.
Yeah, that was an interesting article. I liked the read, and I'll have to read it again. The Manga Plus article is interesting too. Spreading yourself thin. There's the quality check, right?
And the other thing of that you're going across the globe and stuff like that. And even for a big company like that, as they said, they have to look at each region almost individually. What is local censorship looking at? So how do they look at certain things? And then they need those translators and stuff like that. And it takes time to find the competent ones and also find them that will actually be able to meet their demand and stuff like that. Because as we said, it seems like it's insatiable on the manga and anime end.
I feel like if you pay them more, I could solve a lot of that issues.
Well, the thing is, it's part of the solution. And I think I think Morrissey in many respects tries to set up a money argument there, saying if you keep contracting out, if you don't pay them now, or don't pay your core artists now, you're going to contract out to people outside of the country, and in the long run, it could cost more. That's the crux of it, right? That's that's really Cole's noting it. You have to read the article's worth a longer read, granted.
And as we said, like a lot of the animators and stuff like that, a lot of them are doing it out of passion and stuff like that. But the burnout is so high. It's like, why should I be here when I can make a better living in video games? And a lot of them go back to video games or to other sectors. And that the other thing is the quality just isn't there, as some of the old guard has said, because they're just running and gunning to get these shows done. They don't have the time to properly go one-to-one and train them like they used to.
Mm-hmm. So, where are we then?
We're at a crossroad where they're going to cup up some more money, and then the issue will go away.
You hope, but then there's your involvement.
That's why all of them want to be on the production committee, as we've said again and again. Because if they want more money, they got to get a piece of the pie, which means you got to be on the production committee, unless they figure out a new way to do the system, as they say, right?
Some kind of cost sharing or something? Profit sharing of some kind. I mean, I feel like if the building blocks, the core, without them, nothing gets made type situation. I mean, people keep overlooking that, right? I mean, without these animators, there's no anime, right?
Oh, yeah, that's the interesting part. It just feels like a disrespect.
100%. Yeah.
Right? You're trying to promote all of this stuff, but it isn't made by the suits. It isn't made by the production committees. It isn't made by... You know where it's made from. But they don't seem to get any real benefit from all of this.
I think that is most highlighted by the Marvel situation, where, the creators of the specific stories that these billion-dollar movies are based on get, according to the sources, a $5,000 thank you check if they're lucky. That's all that they're all that they could hope for. I think that's at least the case with the person behind the original Winter Soldier script. I'm pretty sure that that's the case, which is just really boring corporate greed. Like $5,000, like that's a joke for essentially what should be a writing credit, and it's weird. Like from that tweet, I'm in a very weird place where I completely agree with what's being said, but I also do think that, I do have some empathy for people who are cheering for the bad guys, or for Disney and Marvel, because people are attached to these characters in a way that is, it's something where, I guess I understand why people are afraid that Spider-Man might go away. It is still greed based, so I'm not arguing that, but I think that's interesting, where people are afraid that, Spider-Man's going away, and I'm wondering if there are people who are afraid that anime, or good anime, will go away if, oh no, we have to pay them more. I don't think that's the case, but
I don't think that. Yeah, it's just
that would be the case, and as we said, with a few different thought points, other people have said before, is maybe they should be making less and maybe focusing on certain anime, like maybe those higher end titles more. Like you can still do lower end titles, but don't do as many of them and stuff like that.
So the quality quantity,
yeah, but then only popular manufactured stuff gets made. The lesser, more creative stuff doesn't get made. I mean, it's the same issue we have with every movie being a blockbuster, right? I mean, it's tough, but
it's just when I read. Okay, and by the way, Surat, I I know Surratt, by the way, is probably watching the Overwatch League Grand Final himself because he's been tweeting about it the last couple hours. Just for reference. So who? Like I sort of get it, but it's like I see what Surratt's trying to say. It's just I place. What's the old phrase? I want it now. Ima kore ga hoshinda. I always like to make fun of that statement, right? Anybody who hangs around me knows I like to make fun of that statement, and I think that was a catchphrase once used on Anime News Network as well. And sometimes when I read that statement, I say to myself, "Stupid fans," because that's sort of the line that's sort of the sentiment I get when I read that tweet too. Fans can be such a fickle bunch. Fandom can be so fickle. It's willing to see the vision of a story or character be taken away, be compromised, just for the sake of lengthening it. Like that's Marvel in many respects. That's what's happened in Marvel. There seems to be a hope that it happens to some degree within the anime world. Recap for me. The rights of the creator when it comes to an anime or manga property. Because you always hear, like, how much control does a creator ultimately have, or is it not much different? Because sometimes when you see a copyright, the copyright belongs. You always see the author's name.
I think it is different, and the only reason why I kind of have that inkling is because of Shaman King. Like, it used to be Shonen Jump, and now it's Kodansha. I'm sure there are contracts available, like made there for like a certain amount of time, but that could be why, there were, pauses. I'm sure there are some contracts that, like, I don't see Dragon Ball leaving Shonen Jump. Like, I'm sure there was some sort of amazing money handoff there that sort of sealed that property, to, I guess, Shueisha. But for, B tier and below, I imagine it is, for the most part, a lot more creator tied, compared to the American industry. At least for the most part. Like, there's countless stories of like situations where that isn't the case. But if you create a character for DC or Marvel, they own that character, and you're lucky if you get a mention in a credits if there's an adaptation. But because you don't have like the creator's name be attached, like aside from that Zack Snyder thing, versus manga anime, or at least for manga, the author's name is usually really big on the cover of those books, at least comparatively.
Yeah, as I said, it boggles me sometimes. But this is like, as I said, this is like a more money, more problems type thing. I know I'm kind of quoting another popular hip hop lyric. But is this where anime and manga could be going? Are we on the precipice of that?
I would doubt it. The culture just seems different. Like, I don't think there's as many of those weird work for hire contract situations in the manga anime world. I think it's a lot. I don't want to say fairer, because we're talking about a lot of injustices in the industry. But at least when it comes to creator and work, I think things are at least more stable
in terms of in terms of their intellectual property.
Yeah, like, even if it's still, not the best or not fair, like, because, like, these in the American industry, these things have been happening almost since the the comic book industry has started. Yeah, like Superman stories were in a horrible state for the longest time. So many weird, questions of Batman have come up. Like it's kind of built into the narrative of the medium, and or at least the storytelling structure of at least superhero comics. Um, Again, yeah, as you mentioned, since sort of the founding, and I don't think that's really been a huge factor on the Japanese end. I could be wrong, but you don't hear about the stories, at least.
Mm-hmm. But as I said, it just seems like fandom wants it to go that way, or at least what type of fandom? Is that the suggestion Surat is saying in the tweet? I guess we'd have to ask him. Or is that part of the whole, well, more people, outsiders are coming to into the culture. And this is the situation we're starting to see. Like, this is part of one of those dilemmas that the industry is now facing, as hopefully the popularity is booming. And once again, to use another cliche we've used, the whole kicking and screaming. Not totally sure this is an ideal direction. I'd like to see creators be able to hold a little bit of swing, be able to have their properties. Because frankly,
certain creators do. Like I think of I think Mark Millar with his agreements with Netflix. I think there's a lot more creative control there. If you look at I think his name's, is it Kirkman with The Walking Dead and Invincible?
Yeah, but those are like unicorns, man.
Well, they're unicorns, but I was able to list two. But the thing is, with those ones, they're independent, or at least they lean independent. Like they're not with what has been called the big two.
True.
And I think that it's interesting that if you look at those comics by Dark Horse, IDW, Image, I think that they were built, especially Image, with the foundation of let's give the creators more rights, because in the 80s, Jim Lee and all these people were like, this sucks, like, despite the fact that he's working for DC now, I think really high up in the power structure. But a lot of these companies were built on these principles. So I think that that's why these independent comics have been able to have more creative control, versus if it's DC or Marvel, it's you're basically just creating something for this company, almost worse than a gift. Like you're creating something and then they're taking custody.
So maybe in some respects there's something going on, at least on the Western side, in the Western industry.
Comics. Yeah, and I think that I think that the articles that were shared, I think, kind of highlight the differences. I think with the on the animation front, on these lower rung jobs, there are still issues on the North American side, but the structure is completely different. Like we're not, for the most part, most of Western animation is outsourced to South Korea and other places as well, so we don't have to worry about that as much. But in Japan, like there's different layers where we're not really concerned about the creators' rights as much. It's more about these working conditions for animators and the lower level creatives, background artists, concept designers, etc., which isn't the discussions that are being had in the North American geek sphere, I guess.
Mm-hmm. But it's kind of come to the forefront.
Yeah, like
at
I'm
least
sure
in the anime, in the manga side, in the anime side.
Exactly. Like that's the issues on the manga anime side are more of these. We need fair prices for translators for these lower level. I feel horrible saying that, but animators, so like people doing more of the in-betweens, fill-in kind of work, versus the North American side, it's much more focused on, creators' rights, which is interesting that it's kind of opposite in a lot of ways, right? Like,
yeah, it's a different focus. Like I still, my head still spins about it, really. So, okay, so we've sort of kind of gone through two of the articles. The third one is the Manga Plus article, is the Manga Plus thought. Although I don't know what to really say about that. That maybe we've sort of touched on it a little bit, and I'll be honest, I'm just trying to skim
it's
it right now.
similar to what Geoff said when he. Well, I don't think he really misspoke, but it was kind of his thought process. And translators are another piece of the puzzle, at least here in North America, and we've heard it again and again about, at least on the Crunchyroll side, of their rates being quite low because when they came into existence and stuff like that, they said, we'll work for these rates. And then they never really went up and stuff like that. They're like, well, this is the standard. And so at some point you have to realize, well, where are we right now? And they're pumping out way more than they ever did at the beginning. You know what I mean? So, and to get those out, even if they're way ahead on script and all these other things, there still needs to be like a recalibration, so to speak. And that's something I think they kind of mention in there because they have so many regions to translate, at least for the Manga Plus app.
I guess it's sort of taking all those, like what was established in the Japanese side and trying to expand it in outside of Japan. But then that's not sitting well with people. Well, or with at least those that are affected. Correct me if I'm wrong.
With the quality concern thing, like it's interesting because, we now have digital as a factor, as such a huge factor, which allows for more titles to get translated. Like I imagined, years ago, you only had enough money and eyeballs on the series to say, okay, we're going to translate these 10 series over the course of the year. We can take our time, publish one every couple months. But like now it's like we have 50 manga that we can theoretically publish and get eyeballs on and ad revenue and just actual subscription numbers on. They're coming out every week. We need to get them translated within a couple days so that people don't pirate. Like it's more demanding now. And the desire for quality translation, as we've discussed on this podcast before, is higher. Fans are more scrutinous now. People have horrible flame wars and arguments about translation. So it's almost like we want people to do more work and better work for the kind of money that they were making, 20 years ago or whatever, which is ridiculous.
Is this another version of, and I'm going to quote Conan O'Brien's thinking when he talked with Hillary Clinton, because, and I've said this before, with and you can roll the digital distribution into this argument. The internet outpacing human evolution. Because when we talk about flame wars, that's the context by which he said that. Because that seems to be the case here. The internet is trying to the internet has driven people's desires, but it can't control it, but it's an almost uncontrollable rate.
And then the other question is, when people see it on the internet first, sometimes it might be the unauthorized version, and they may have more attachment to that. But translation, as we know, is an art form. You know what I mean? And when they do the official one, they try their best and stuff like that. And sometimes they have time constraints and stuff like that. And sometimes they look at it differently than someone who's just doing it on the fly, right? And trying to be the first.
So, yeah, maybe that is the case then. By the way, just a quick aside, since we brought it up at the beginning of the episode, it just happened. The Shanghai Dragons have swept the Atlanta Reign 4-0.
Oh yeah, 4-0. My bad.
4 maps to 0 and are the 2021 Overwatch League championships. The story for them is now full circle. Congratulations to them in what was probably a pretty much an expected result. So congratulations to the Shanghai Dragons and their long-suffering fans. Okay.
So does that mean the Jays are not making the playoffs?
Well, that's something else altogether. And did they win?
I think they are hopefully going to win.
They're up 6-1.
They're the makers of their own destiny, as we know.
Yeah, they have to. All you can really do is just win every game in front of you. They are up 6-1 on the Minnesota Twins. They are 2 games behind in the wild card race.
You know what the great thing is? If you win the wild card, the likely scenario is you have to play the Rays.
Yeah, wouldn't that be hilarious?
But it was funny getting back to what we were talking about before. You know what the funny thing I saw in the article, the snippet, and Geoff made mention about revenue going to people from advertisements. As they made mention, a portion of that revenue at the moment is actually going directly to manga authors. And I don't know which ones they are. Hopefully it's to all the ones that are on the service. But that's a nice thing that you don't always see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. Well, so maybe we're somewhere, I guess.
But sometimes, as we said, with some of this, it's like you learn as you go along, and we'll see if they find those people that'll help them get translations that people will come to enjoy and stuff like that. And it takes time to develop talent, and we've seen it even on the anime side. As I told you, Mike, remember we were saying Crunchyroll was ahead in the non-English market, getting all these subtitled anime out to non-English audiences, whether it's Spanish, French, German, Arabic, and so on and so forth. And now Funimation is finally coming to the fore on that, and we're seeing that in the Spanish and Brazilian, Portuguese market. We're seeing that with Sentai, but for Funimation, on some of the series they've started out with on the Spanish side, it's like they have been criticized by people in the Spanish-speaking world on some of their first attempts. And I think some of those were done out in Miami, and now they've started going towards where some of those other markets were, which I think they were in, as I said, Mexico City and around there and some other spots in South America that supposedly did work that a lot of the fans enjoyed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, but I'm kind of glad you talked a little bit about, well, this is a new development, so really you have to just learn to live with it, or learn as you go along with it, because these are all new developments, new things, new benchmarks in the industry. There isn't anything established. There isn't a precedent, so you're making it here.
And the other thing is now you have that global fan base, right? And we don't all speak one language, unfortunately. So now you got a ball going in so many different courts, right? Even if it's consolidated around Sony, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. I did want to go back a little bit before we end the topic. I did want to go back a little bit to Morrissey's article because, yeah, it brought up some of the failed projects within Cool Japan, and Daisuke was mentioned there.
That was an interesting one because, as has been talked about, it's like they're like, okay, we're going to try our best. We're going to do our own streaming thing. And I agree that when I tried Daisuke, we complain about Funimation and Crunchyroll and all that stuff, right? But they took it to another level with their clumsy UI and what they had to offer, and it just was not one-to-one. So that's why a lot of people didn't even want to give them an option for subscribing and stuff like that. They didn't have any must-haves, and some of that, as they said, was that a lot of the Japanese production committees and stuff like that told them straight up and said, well, we know we can get better money from Crunchyroll, Funimation, or other parties instead of you, and they just couldn't win in the bidding wars and stuff like that. So just because we're playing for the same team, Cool Japan, whatever, it's like, no, you have to stand in line with the others, so to speak, and they just were not in a good position.
Mm-hmm.
And then it comes back to Sentai, where now they've put their ball into Sentai, and these are people that have been in the market and know how it works and stuff like that, so to speak.
Develop
So
that
they'll have a
like
better,
they have a degree of that trust we've talked about in the past when we
and
talked
they'll
about the
have
Anime
a
Tube
better.
story.
They'll have a. I think this will go, as we said, a lot better than them trying to do it all on their own from square one and stuff like that.
I guess.
And
Well,
even
in that sense, they had like a partner, quote unquote, right?
and with
It does.
Sentai, we also have High Dive, and yes, High Dive, they're probably going to be promoting that more. But
Oh, yeah.
but it'll be interesting to see how they do, because that's the big thing, right? It's like people want that all-in-one subscription, which I think is never going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
And they got to find
like
those
all in one with
exclusives,
what?
right?
All in one with High Dive. Like which you lost me for a second here. Sorry.
Well, I think I was more thinking of Verve, remember, which
Oh,
now
yeah.
High
Well,
Dive basically
which High
left, and
Dive
they said they're
withdrew
now going
from.
to focus more on their own thing and hopefully get some more subscribers. And unfortunately, I think most of the people who wanted to see Legend of the Galactic Heroes, like myself, have already seen it and stopped their subscription. So that's unfortunate, but they have some interesting ones here and there, and it just depends on which ones they pick to be exclusive. We know they have Lupin Part 6 this coming fall. We'll see how that does for them. I'm not sure it's going to light the world on fire, but I still enjoy it quite a bit. I'm not going to subscribe. It's interesting. They're getting different ways also, I think, probably made to draw attention to themselves. Like they're doing a theatrical event late next month in October. Hopefully it comes to Canada and Cineplex, but so far it's just in the States, where they're teaming up with TMS to do a Lupin event. And so they're doing part one, episode one dubbed for the first time ever, and then they're doing the first two episodes of part 6 sub only.
Mm-hmm. As I said, I don't know. I just look at it now. It's just one. I'm just wondering: was there ever a chance that another corporate firm could have been in this mix, aside to counter Sony? I mean, that's the number. That's the thing I think about when I look at this too. When I look at the failure of something like Daisuke, and well, them putting a little bit more into really a small fish in Sentai. And by the way, and it is to be fair to Sentai, it's nice to see them still somehow around. But it always comes back down to: could there have been another player in all of this that Cool Japan could have tried to prop, or at least could have put their backing into, that could have at least countered Sony, another Japanese firm? Or I guess we'll never know, right? I mean, then it comes back down to, okay, who else could have, say, bought Crunchyroll when Sony didn't have to buy it and rule the world?
Well, unfortunately, AT&T wanted a lot of money, so there were only slim pickings of who could pick it up at that price, as they say.
Well, and then, yes, slim pickings in terms of one, somebody with the pockets, and two, the willingness to do something with it.
I mean, it should have been Disney. That would have been great.
I guess it comes down to the whole notion: in order to counter an evil, you don't counter it with good, you counter it with a different evil.
Yeah, fire.
If you're willing
to
subscribe to that thought, right?
What we need is the estate of an evil creator, and they could have bought it instead.
Mm-hmm. So that's a Riddick line, I believe. So yeah, it just still boggles me, because it made me reflect on all those missed opportunities. But it's like saying, hindsight's 2020. And I know privately, Mo, when we've talked about the Crunchyroll sale, you've always said to me, and this was after the Justice Department review, will the Justice Department come to regret allowing the sale or saying it's okay? Because I know we had that conversation privately before.
I mean, they'll only regret it if it becomes like a monopoly type situation. And I feel like you're right with the increase in viewership of anime. I mean, who knows, in a decade's time, when every anime goes through one source, that might be an issue. You're right. But I feel like, these companies might fold or things might get moved around a bit,
Yeah, I guess it also makes the assumption that the gamble pays off, because we talked about the gamble.
True.
We talked about the gamble of the purchase, right, James?
Yeah, the gamble of the purchase. But even for the Justice Department and stuff like that, I feel compared to other investigations they do and things like that this one was just small potatoes to them. They've washed their hands of it. They're done. They did what they needed to do. And
there's plenty of evidence.
And at the end of the day, whoever was doing it, they've probably long forgotten it by the time whatever happens.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, they have other things on the plate. And remember, you're right. The small potato. We can go back to the small potatoes argument one more time when you look at the parrot numbers that we mentioned last time. And once again, I'll state it yet again. As much as anime and manga is the center of the universe that we live in as fans, in the broader scheme, and yes, it might be increasing a little bit. In the broader scheme, it's still not that much.
For now.
And as we said, there was the bromance before between Funimation and Crunchyroll and stuff like that, and I'm sure that was discussed there. And they're going to say, well, if you tangoed once and it was okay, then you can tango again.
Yeah. Well, it's not a bromance; it's a marriage now. It's an arranged marriage.
Let's see how great that prenup is.
Good way to put it. But there's a few thoughts, and I know it's kind of random thoughts, and in many respects we're looking at it the same way, but it's an ongoing story, and still a fascinating one to me. Maybe to everybody else who keeps up. Okay, maybe just me. I get it. But that's... those are just those are things that just stuck out to us, just the changing culture, and how does the present culture handle new people coming into it? I mean, there's that I know a number of weeks ago there was this parody article that I think Kevin put up, or was it me? I don't know, about a fan pleading with other fans to not come in and not become anime fans because she wants to remain unique.
Aw, boo.
You got the gist, right?
Boo.
You get the gist. Do you know the article I'm referring to, or you kind of get the gist of what she's trying to say?
I get the gist. I hate that in general. Just the don't do this so that I can be unique in doing it only. I mean, go, no, boo.
Yeah, but I think it's a parody also of how a segment of older fandom feels with all this going on.
I reiterate,
that's part of the flame world.
Like the changing seas, as they say, right, Mike? Because it's funny which part of older fandom. Because I remember when I came in, it's like you think about the fandom before that, and now I guess at that point, the aughts, when we had that next wave of it just coming through, I guess now we are the older fandom for some of us at that time. So it's this weird thing. It goes back and forth. But at the end of the day, it should be great that we're getting some more fans and they have their own unique perspective to bring to our hobby and stuff like that, and just have some civil debates and stuff like that.
But that's the problem. It's not really civil.
And that's the problem I find, is some people just take it to this extreme, like it becomes a part of them. It's an ownership. And I think it'll be something we've talked about before with the live action remakes of, not remakes, but live action interpretations. Different animes and different properties and stuff like that people just become so invested. But it's its own unique vehicle. Just go in, enjoy. If you don't like it, don't like it. If you are already that set against it, then you know what? Just back away. Don't even worry about it. There's better things to do with your time. You know what I mean? Like, why spend all this time spreading hate?
it is too much energy to be angry all the time. I can say that from experience. And once again, James, very good with the segues. But once again, but I'll just to get away from the parody article. Isn't that sort of like another gatekeeping type feel?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And well, you know how we feel about that.
Boo,
I believe it.
That's how we feel about that. Boo.
Yeah.
It's like I keep on hearing these, and I just keep on thinking of the Smash community and stuff like that. And it just is like, man, oh man.
Mm-hmm.
Some days.
Okay, but good segue, James, because we're done here, and as I said, just some interesting angles again from themes we've always been talking about on the show.
So are we now talking about the Schwarzeneggers and the Kennedys now?
Well, eventually,
and
yes.
about one of their members becoming Mario.
Members.
Is that the first? Is that the first one we wanted to do? Is that the first bullet we want to do as we begin the bullets? These are presented in point form, but could become essays.
I did hear that there was a Nintendo Direct this week, Mike.
And there was. Okay,
Miyamoto is looking old. I gotta tell you, Miyamoto is looking old now. Holy smokes!
I admit I didn't
watch
like
it. It's overfucked, but damn. Whew.
Yeah, it's just I admit I didn't watch it myself. Do you have a takeaway from the Nintendo Direct? Because it does kind of roll into the bullet I was thinking, which everyone already knows.
It was a fever dream.
It was great.
I really think that they announced Chris Pratt as Mario first to prime our brains from not imploding and collapsing on themselves as they started revealing the rest of the cast. Because Chris Pratt as Mario, oh wow, that's complex and weird, and it just breaks your brain so it can be built upon. So when you get to Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong, it's like, oh yeah, good, okay, that's in line.
Or Jack Black as Bowser.
That I love.
It was interesting. Then you had Toad too. It's like there were some interesting, they have a lot of characters in that movie. Let's put it that way. So it'll be interesting to see how they pull that story together.
I mean, personally, I thought it would have been better if they had gone Danny DeVito as Mario. But that's just me.
But Mario's supposed to be 25.
I mean, come on, it's voice acting.
Well, that's as complicated as putting John Cho as Spike, but we'll get to that a bit later.
But Miyamoto's heavily involved in it, so obviously he had to sign off on all these casting choices. And I have to wonder, too, if the 1993 Super Mario live-action movie, if some of that is still in the back of their head, and maybe there was some tendency that they said, okay, we're going to work with these guys, we're going to work with Hollywood, and they thought about, and they leaned and said, okay, we're going to trust you in some senses. And I wonder if they trusted on casting.
Mm-hmm. Well, it
is a Christmas movie. Don't forget. I wonder if that plays a factor too. Yeah, they said December 2022. So It's going to be a Christmas movie. It's a bit before that they're releasing it, but it's right there.
So here's my thought on it, though. First of all, I am I'm not flaming any of the choices, because in the end, these are just voices for an animated movie. I know people don't like the call already. To argue this, to flame this, it's about as purposeful as getting on Kirsten Dunst's case for playing Kiki in the Kiki's Delivery Service dub, or Michael Keaton playing Porco Rosso, or Gillian Anderson having a role in Princess Mononoke way back. I mean, it becomes interesting to me only if maybe you start to have a case if Pratt dresses up as Mario himself, but that's only likely to happen at a Comic-Con promotion.
It all depends. I feel like this all hinges on the accents, so to speak. I mean, if
there is to be one,
exactly.
It all depends on the voices, right?
True. Look, and I'll get to you in a sec, Geoff. Think about the old Saturday morning cartoons that would have existed in the 80s, based on on Donkey Kong and Super Mario Brothers. It wasn't any accented voice then, and nobody gave two shits. But then again, we're talking Saturday mornings. Geoff.
Well, first of all, the Super Mario Brothers Super Show did have an accent. It was just Brooklyn and not Italian.
Yeah, it was
okay. Yes, thank you, thank you. Maybe that keep it. As I said, I have my family's roots lie, or at least this branch of my family does have its roots in New York. So
okay,
maybe it's all normal to me in that sense. Sorry.
So I do want to disagree with your impassioned it doesn't matter because it's animated exclamation that you did, because a lot of people out there, somewhat including myself as well, the anger isn't that, oh no, Chris Pratt is voicing Mario. There's some of that for sure. The anger stems from the fact that people forgot, I believe, that this was a Hollywood movie. And with a lot of, these bigger Hollywood animated movies, actual voice actors are completely shafted. Charles Martinet, who has been the voice of Mario and is an actor aside from whoopee, wahoo, like he can do more than that. He is a skilled actor, but he plays Mario in a video game, so that's what he does. He is shafted to a cameo, which I've seen said on Twitter is especially sad because it is possible if the Mario movie does well, he will make more money for saying a couple lines as a cameo than his entire career playing one of the most, if not the most beloved mascots from a video game of all time. The only voice actor in the cast is Kevin Michael Richardson as Kamek, the Magic Cooper from Yoshi's Island, who has become further in the series. But everyone else is just big name Hollywood actors. Actual people trained as voice acting never get billed as credits. That happened, I think we were discussing that with the Space Jam a couple months ago.
Yeah, okay. I see. I'm not going to... Yeah, okay, that's a fair point.
And
does this happen in Japan too, when, say, a Miyazaki film happens? When a Ghibli film happens? That's because I'm thinking that too.
The industry is different though, because like there will be idols cast for anime roles of all kind, whether in a television series or a movie, but idols and that kind of thing, there's been this connection with voice acting as well. Like a lot of times these celebrities will, kind of train in both of these roles. But I don't, it's different.
Right.
Yeah.
Becoming an apples and oranges thing.
I think overall, like for Ghibli and then those type of ones like Hosoda and things like of that nature for those type of movies, maybe the first main leads, they might go and reach out live action in Japan, stuff like that, but they'll still then go to regular voice actors and stuff like that for most of the other roles. It isn't like a complete live action cast in an animated feature like we're seeing here, where they're trying to obviously get seats in people in the seats, so to speak.
And a lot of these actors, I think, are talented when it comes to voice acting. Like I'm thinking, I think Jack Black can do a good voice acting role. Seth Rogen, I think he's done a lot of voice acting, and even Chris Pratt, I'm sure has the potential to train and do well.
You just feel bad for like anybody who does the voice, who just does voice acting, and people who've established themselves in that sense.
Yeah, but I'm also a realist, and I knew that this was a Hollywood movie and this would never happen. Like I love Roger Craig Smith to be Sonic, but I mean, with that situation is interesting because I'm blanking on movie Sonic's actor. Is it Bill something? I know he also voices Huey. What is his name?
We'd have to look it up.
But yeah, I feel bad about that. But he is Schwartz, I think is his last name. Anyways, he is a kind of wouldn't say he's an A-list Hollywood actor. So I feel much better about him as Sonic, but he's also, I don't think he's top billing for Sonic. I think Jim Carrey as Robotnik is. But, the point I was making that I knew this was going to be Hollywood. It's made by the Minions
Ben Schwartz
team.
is a giant, big-time actor.
Yes.
Hold on, what?
No, but, okay, Ben Schwartz is not like, I'm going to headline a Marvel movie, though.
Oh, dude, come on, man. John Ralphio? The guy's been on 30 Rock?
This is television, Mo.
What about Parks and Rec? That's where Chris Pratt got his start.
Again, I love Ben Schwartz, despite the fact that I was blanking on his name. I think he does a great Sonic. I think it's not Huey, it's Louie, blue one.
Yeah.
I think he's great as Louie. I think it works great. But so I'm fine with him as Sonic, but I want to note again, Robotnik Jim Carrey is the headliner of the Sonic movie.
No, of course.
And it's again, I'm a realist. This was made by Illumination. They're not going to hire Rob Paulson or Barbara Goodson or any of these Tara Strong. Like, they're not going to pick the North American stalwarts of voice acting as much as they should, and the movie would be better acted.
But you're going for the splash, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I get it. I'm sad,
that's why
but I get it.
Just imagine, Geoff, if they had done that, you'd have either Nolan North or Troy Baker playing Mario.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and then you'd still have people coming at you.
My sentiment was I'm not, like, it doesn't upset me because I just don't think it makes it any less. It's just, maybe I didn't really think about the Hollywood angle. It's just hard for me to hold flames to that because maybe it's a no-win situation regardless of what you were, and maybe because it's Hollywood. That's why I just don't hold any real venom over the casting choices, because I just felt regardless of which way you want it went, it would be debated ad nauseum.
I think there would have been, solutions, or at least, better options, like make Chris Pratt Mario, whatever, but let Charles Martinet stay as Luigi, for example, and not whoever weird line on Paranoid Board guy. I don't
just
watch movies.
Still keep because he did so many voices.
Somebody established more towards the
or at least have a balance. Line. Yeah, have a balance or something. But it's just a star-studded cast. But again, I do want to say, nice to see Kevin Michael Richardson there. I think that Jack Black is going to nail it as Bowser. That's, I think, excellent casting.
Rogen, yeah, sure.
Yeah, Seth Rogen, I think, will do good Donkey Kong. Like, for all us Canadians, we're used to Donkey Kong just being a regular sounding, 20s guy in his 20s, but has an angelic singing voice. So, it's going to be a different take.
You do know, like, they were just listing names, listing characters, but there was one character they didn't list, and that was Yoshi.
Okay,
so that was kind of interesting.
I was talking to someone today. I think Yoshi. I think the post-credit scene is going to be a Yoshi egg cracking and then fade to black. Because Yoshi wasn't cast. I think, it looks from the plot. You have Foreman Spike. You have Cranky Kong. It's going to be a weird origin movie where we're talking about the original Donkey Kong, the new Donkey Kong, but also Bowser and Kamek are there. I don't think we're getting to Mario World territory here. It's going to be probably
in the sequel,
mostly Brooklyn. Skip to Mario's Mushroom Kingdom for the last 2/3 of the movie.
Okay. Well, did you want to add something? Or did the conversation get too far away?
I was just going to say, I mean, Chris Pratt's not a bad choice. We could have had worse choices. I mean, he did those Lego movies. Those are pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
People are also, there is still a little bit of negativity towards Chris Pratt politically.
Oh,
and I
come
think,
on.
I know that that is, I think, a driving factor toward the outrage toward Chris Pratt in particular. I think if it was, say, Ben Schwartz or, a less controversial actor, there would still be a little bit of an uproar, but I don't think there would have been as much. But I truly do think that's a big factor.
He's gonna be like in another Guardians movie, and then everyone's gonna be like, "Oh yeah, Chris, we like this guy," and then forget all about that.
It depends on the people, but I most of the controversy has come out after Guardians 2.
Okay, but then again, maybe that also starts to go back into some of the mentalities that have been known to exist within video game fandom and anime fandom. I mean, we've kind of touched on it a little bit with people like Matt Alt, but that's another story altogether, I guess.
And I think it kind of ties in, like, as we said, people are so attached and stuff like that. And I think some of it plays in this cast. And as we said, and Geoff said, we kind of saw this at the beginning because they decided to team with Illumitoon and Universal to get this done, and that they're making this a Christmas movie, that they're going all in, and they're spending an exorbitant amount of money, and that now they're putting, after all these years of not doing these type of movies, it looks like now they're going all in, and we'll see how that does for them. I'm sure at least it'll be better than the 1993 movie. Probably won't be as unique, but
John Leguizamo, Bob Hodgkins. Anyway,
but it's interesting too. It comes back. Remember you said about the direct, right? How the direct was, and it was similar to that, because I was hearing things that I guess with these type of events sometimes, and as we said, these are marketing exercises, but people are so attached to Nintendo and to these guys that they're so angry that when they see these spoilers, and all I say is, well, you didn't have to look, and yes, I know it's hard to not look on the internet because somehow something gets through your feed, right?
Mm-hmm. Mo,
one
last thought, and then we'll move to the next.
What's the under over on this making $1 billion, theatrically speaking?
I think it'll get close. I don't know if it'll get to $1 billion, because it is going to be a kids movie.
Yep, and a holiday movie too. So
I'm not. Has any, like, aside from like your Frozen's, has any kids movie broken $1 billion?
I mean, Toy Story maybe, but that was like a while back.
But we're looking at worldwide box office, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, how will this play in like China, right?
It'll be fine. There's no ghosts or skeletons.
Yeah, true.
But I think this will be a good step for Nintendo. But it'll be interesting to see what they do with their other properties, how they decide to let them out of the box. But they're still controlling, because we've heard about what happened. They axed supposedly a Legend of Zelda series that was supposed to be with Netflix, because somehow that leaked out. But it'll be interesting to see what the future holds for that. But even the Nintendo Direct showed us some things, because we saw Kirby in a 3D world for the first time ever, which will be interesting to see how that plays out. We saw Bayonetta 3, and that looked pretty damn slick, even though it was like, a 4-year wait from a teaser trailer that just had the name Bayonetta 3. And now we actually got gameplay. And then the other thing that was of interest was the expansion pack, quote unquote, of the virtual console for, I guess, Nintendo's online service that we'll have to pay extra for. And they had N64 and Sega Genesis, which is interesting. So maybe we'll see some other systems, maybe TurboGrafx. And we saw Banjo-Kazooie in that N64 thing. So maybe they're going to get together with Microsoft and get some rare games on that N64 online part of it. And then the most biggest thing of it was, of course, they're going to do controllers for the Switch for Sega Genesis and N64, and they're going to charge a ridiculous $50 US to people, which is going to be even more in Canadian dollars. But it's ridiculous that they're going to charge for both of those. Even more ridiculous for Sega Genesis, because they're going the 3-button controller, and Japan is getting the 6-button controller. And they did this with the Mini, and they said, "Oh, it's because of nostalgia." And I said, "F nostalgia. Come on, do the right thing. You just do the 6-button controller. No one gave a rat's ass how many buttons were on that controller. A Genesis and a Mega Drive controller is still a controller with 6 or 3 buttons."
I think the 3D Kirby news is most exciting to me because most Kirby games will end with Kirby fighting an elder Cthulhu god in a void of his own self discovery and psychology, and wondering what the purpose of life and death is against a being that wants to consume all. And those games usually start with Kirby bouncing around a fun, happy flower field. This Kirby game starts in a post-apocalyptic mall. So if that's where it's starting, I really want to know what the final boss of this one's going to be.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, it's post-apocalyptic world. It's like Kirby: The Last of Us.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But thinking too, it's like they also had Splatoon 3, more of that, which is fun to see, and we get to see that mammals are going to make an appearance.
Okay. Well, I gotta see if I can watch that at some point. It's just been busy. All right, let's move on. Item. Didn't know this was in the works. A live action Saint Seiya or Zodiac Knights or Knights of the Zodiac. A live action has been in the works.
Sean Bean is supposedly going to be on it. So what's the over-under? His character dies in it, given his wishes.
I'm thinking like first 15 minutes, maybe.
Isn't the project finished or something weird like that? Like it was just made and no one was talking about it?
Hey, I'm not complaining, man. I wish more people did that. Just like show up with like a trailer being, "Hey, we filmed this thing. It's coming out in a week."
Yeah, that's right. The production's it says here that it's done. Oh,
it's interesting though, because I think it'll be interesting to see how it does in English, but I think where it really has its legs, and I know we've talked about ad nauseum again, and Geoff has mentioned it too, is I think Latin America is where this really hits. And it'll be interesting to see who plays for the Spanish voices, I guess.
This sounds like the Saint Seiya movie.
Well, hey! Welcome, Kevin. Glad you made it about an hour, 12 minutes into this whole mess.
Hey.
Yeah.
Just in time to talk about Saint Seiya.
Well, we're in the middle of the bullets, just for reference, Kevin.
Okay.
And we'll get you up to speed on other things after we're done, but we're in the second bullet now, Kevin, so we've already talked the main stuff. We just have a couple more to go. So, hey, welcome. Get to close it out with us tonight.
Yeah. Always.
Yeah.
Always nice.
How was your day, by the way?
It was a little hectic. Well, no, it was not all hectic, but it was just busy. Like I had a former coworker come over, and then my sister came over as well because we were doing some more like staging stuff.
Okay.
And then we went out to like buy more stuff for the unit, and then we also had dinner at my brother's current place of employment, which is this new hot pot place near, I want to say Finch and Brimley.
Okay.
There's some famous like Chinese hot pot chain apparently.
All right. Well, we'll talk about that when we're done off the air tonight.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's continue this thought. Do you want to get in on the whole talk of the Saint Seiya movie?
Oh, I was just going to echo what James said. This is 100% geared towards the non-North American audience because it really feels like Saint Seiya hit everywhere except for North America. Like by the time we got it, it was much too late.
Yeah, but sometimes that's sort of the way it goes.
Yeah, which is fine.
Well, okay, which leads me to a thought. And it sort of goes like this. Like, we make this joke about here in Toronto. This isn't a Canadian joke about Toronto being the center of the universe. It's mocked by the rest of Canada. And I'm wondering if anime fandom is almost like that. Hear me out for a couple seconds. Has overseas anime fandom become too North American or US centric? Does the anime fandom in North America think too much of itself? Like the international anime fandom think too much of itself in the US and I guess to a lesser degree Canada? Because yes, there are pockets everywhere else, and it's a dedicated pocket. Some of those pockets, especially in Europe, can use the argument it's even older. And obviously, depending on where you go, some series are more popular than others. Saint Seiya, we've already mentioned, but I know Kimagure Orange Road has some very dedicated fan bases in Europe.
And we can even look at City Hunter in France and stuff like that. And it even got a live action movie in France.
Or Captain Tsubasa.
Oh yeah, and a lot of other parts of the world. So does like maybe this is sort of just an expansion on North America in general and how it compares to the rest of the world. So would you say that about fandom here? Does it think too much of itself? Does anime fandom in North America and the US think too much of itself?
I think it's more they don't think of anything aside from themselves. I don't think it's a boastful
basically,
arrogance of like I don't think it's this boastful arrogance of we're the best. We're the best foreign anime fans in the world. I think it's more just they don't care. They don't get out there. They don't.
Too self-absorbed, looking in a mirror.
No, I think it's more in the bubble sort of thing in a way. More.
Yeah.
I think it is a bubble situation because, we're not, like, for the most part, people in North America aren't thinking about anime fans in Mexico. I think a lot of people probably only learned or conceptualized of anime fans in Mexico when there was that big Dragon Ball Super thing where they played it to a, crowded, plaza in the middle of a city. Like, I think that
that was across the different cities and stuff like that, and I think it even stretched to some other spots in South America, and it just hid in people saying, yeah, these series have been really popular in other parts of the world, and they've touched a nerve, and trust me, Dragon Ball touched a nerve in other places, and people were learning about, which was great.
And, Brazil wins international cosplay contests all the time. We've mentioned France. France is huge with anime and a lot of geek culture stuff as well. I think the 3rd season of Sonic X aired there before other countries.
Wow.
That was the weird in space season, so it's not that impressive. But but there's so much. Like when I was living in Costa Rica, there was an established manga cafe, and like just a general pop culture cafe that had statues of anime characters and comic book character glasses and a little anime store built into the cafe. Like it was this entire structure in the city. And this was like a little mini city outside of the capital. Within half an hour, 45 minutes of walking, there were 2 or 3 anime stores, plus the manga anime cafe. And this is Costa Rica. It's not the most, urban, built up place in Central America. It's probably close, but like I don't know what the community would be like in Panama City, for example, or not sure about Nicaragua. It's maybe not as built up or prosperous, but like Mexico especially, like I imagine Mexico probably has dozens of anime stores and manga cafes.
So, and let me end, and we'll end the bullet. I want to end the bullet soon because maybe we should finish up in a bit. So, am I making too much of this idea?
Possibly.
Yeah, I acknowledge it. It's just keep in mind with the expansion, with anime anime's market growing, somebody on the outside is going to have some control in it. So which region? Will it be from North America? Will it be from Europe? Who will have a little bit more of an impact on things moving forward? And an impact in Japan for that matter.
I forget
because that's why I'm curious. That's why I put out that question.
I forget what country it was, but there is a live-action CGI hybrid Woody Woodpecker movie that was made, and it was not made for North America. I think it maybe had a day in theaters. I forget what country it was, but there was another country in the world that still loves Woody Woodpecker. It is not the US or Canada. And it was theatrical internationally. Okay. So I think it could be a situation like that.
Mm-hmm. It was Brazil, by the way.
Okay.
Thank you for looking it up. But it's just, that's why I thought about it. That's why I want to at least have that conversation for a few minutes when I saw this headline on Saint Seiya. Because, and this is overstating it, a battle for anime's soul is about to happen. Okay, that's overstating it.
I thought that was the first segment.
Oh yeah, we're always talking about souls here. Sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm pretty fond of Saint Seiya. I did own the manga at one point and actually read it, and it's kind of nuts. It's a lot of fun and a little cheesy, but that's the 80s for you. Lots of spirit, lots of soul. Like, oh man, I loved reading it, and I kind of regret getting rid of it now that I think about it.
Well, I guess this is also a pitch for people who didn't know what it was to have some familiarity with it.
I don't think it's gonna come here though. I highly doubt it.
The live action?
Yeah, like maybe a limited run.
Maybe a limited run.
Wait, what?
Maybe on
I'm guessing.
Well, it'll be on Netflix. It'll be on Netflix.
I was
think we'll see it on
this was a Netflix a streaming vehicle for this one, so we'll see.
I mean, Sony's distributing it, so I mean maybe Netflix, I guess. But damn, I thought this would have got like a theatrical release and stuff. No,
no one gives a shit about Saint Seiya here.
You say that now, but then once you get the first trailer and hype starts building, I mean, Sean Bean's still a name. People know.
They do have the names.
It could be a pretty spectacular death.
They do have the names, but they've had so many kicks at the can with Saint Seiya, and Kevin can attest to this, that it just, every time they've tried to sell it every which way, they just haven't been able to do it. And even Discotech tried its hardest, and they said the reason they did the Blu-ray of the recent movies was, okay, we'll just do this and see how it does, because they said it just was abysmal.
Okay. Yep. Kevin, last point.
Oh, I was just going to say how, to correct myself a little bit, unless you're of, I don't know, Italian descent or you're from South America or Central America, yeah, people don't care. Because I'll tell you this, when I used to work at a luxury retailer in Toronto, I spoke to a couple of the older Hispanic gentlemen that were my colleagues, and they knew that I was into anime, and then they would ask me, "Oh, did you watch?" God, I don't remember the Spanish name for Saint Seiya, but they asked me, "Oh, do you know this?" I was like, "Yeah, I do." And they're like, "Yeah, they tell me that they watched it when they were little, or their kids watched it back home." I was like, "Damn."
Maybe for this movie, they'll bring back the Bowling for Soup cover of Iran for the trailer.
I mean, they have to, right? I thought that was locked down from the beginning, right? It was not the core premise of this whole thing.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna just retch right now.
It's interesting. I'm looking because they did this in Hungary and Croatia. I'm just reading up on this just to see, but now I'm not sure where they're actually. I guess you're right. I guess it is going to be theatrical.
No, but it's still of curiosity.
You're right. It said Toei is distributing in Japan, and Sony Pictures Worldwide Acquisitions is distributing outside Japan, except China and Middle East.
It might not resemble Saint Seiya at all. Like, that is, you can do a lot with the title Knights of the Zodiac. Like, it is possible we're not going to get colorful armor sets at all, and it's just going to be a weird semi-modern medieval story thing.
Yeah, that's possible.
I'd be down for that. I'd totally watch that.
Okay.
Just to see, I would go just to see how much it deviates from the source material. Like, I don't expect it to be good, to be honest with you, but I just expect
NASCAR
to be,
crash, right?
I just expect to be entertained.
Okay. Check your brain at the door, right?
Genuinely.
Yeah.
Actually, now that I look at I forgot Mark Dacascos was on here too for the cast list. So it's an interesting cast list.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah.
On the topic of lost live action adaptations, Mark Dacascos, he of Crying Freeman.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
And most of them going to watch will probably remember Iron Chef and Hawaii Five-0, right? Or John Wick if they're real.
If you want to go 10 years, at least 10 years.
Crying Freeman is a powerful series.
Yeah. Anyway.
But that's interesting when you think about anime adaptations and you think about this cast list. This is a pretty good cast list. It just depends, I guess, on how they decide to write it up and put it forward, I guess, and how they market it.
Well, it's done, so let's see. Can't wait to see the results. All right. Well,
just imagine if that had been the cast list for the Mario movie, we'd be having a different discussion, I guess, right?
Dear God.
Oh boy,
dude! Yeah. What if they were to release like the Mario movie this holiday season? Just be like, "Hey guys, it's done. Here you go."
You wish. Okay, so we've talked Mario, we've talked Saint Seiya. Finally tonight, coming back to beating a dead horse. The first trailer! Netflix released it for the live-action Cowboy Bebop earlier today.
Are you sure that wasn't a mid-2000s AMV mic?
Oh.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? I know it's getting universally panned.
Really?
It depends on where you go.
Well, it depends on where you
go. Some have been more receptive, some have been less receptive and less kind.
Okay, all right, and maybe Mo's gonna... Mo, you didn't see it, or did you see it, or are you just not trying to have an opinion right now?
I mean,
we'll get to this in a sec.
Yeah, no, it was the opening song. I saw the opening song the day Sid. Was there a trailer that they released as well?
Yeah, it was like it was essentially the trailer, I guess.
I mean, okay.
But people called it the opening, but I mean, okay. Just around the table quickly? What do people make of it right away? Like it, hate it, what caught your attention, etc.
I think they did their best to capture the spirit of the original Cowboy Bebop animated sequence. I think the heart is there. It just feels a little off. It feels a little, I don't want to say fake, but it feels a little robotic. And I think it's just doing that kind of aesthetic in live action just doesn't feel the same as if it was done animated.
Because it felt one for one, I guess, for some people.
I guess so.
I think that's where the panning begins. Geoff?
Yeah, I think I can see that one for one. Like I like Mo, I haven't seen the original series. But I've seen the opening because I love anime openings. And
yes, we've had that conversation.
There were certain parts of it that were very odd. Like I think there was one where there's a character running kind of at an isometric angle, and it seemed like weird that you had this green screened actor running like that. But I liked some of the other moments where you had these I'm guessing tertiary characters kind of doing their thing and clips from the show. Like those seemed
those are villains, but I think some of those are episodic villains.
Yeah, like those seemed fun. Like it kind of reminded me of early Umbrella Academy when the two I guess early antagonists are still wearing the weird masks. Like it had this kind of fun live action Speed Racer maybe kind of vibe, maybe more nuanced or more adult Power Rangers. Like it was this kind of like really fun Like there was a nice energy to it that seemed like they weren't taking themselves too seriously. I can already say I probably will like this series more than Firefly, but I have very mixed thoughts about Firefly. It seems better. I don't want to say better than a CW superhero show. It's maybe on par with some
that's an interesting statement.
Like it's,
I already find that.
I do kind of see comparisons with it, but like it seems a little bit higher budget and energy. Like, you know, like a Doom Patrol is a good example. Like Doom Patrol, Stargirl, Superman and Lois over something like Arrow and Flash. So something a little bit higher budget, but still not the most high budget.
I think. Mo, do you want to offer a thought, or you want to keep your feelings on a clean slate for a while?
Clean slate for a while.
Okay, James. I think James already kind of expressed his thoughts, but do you want to repeat them one more time?
Similar to Geoff and Kevin, that there definitely was the homage to the original series, not just like the song and stuff like that, with some sprinkling of some of the tertiary characters. Interesting enough, no Ed. So we'll have to see what happens with that as the series goes along. But I guess some people were having some positive feelings on it because I guess it made them feel like, okay, we have the creative minds. Yoko Kanno is there. She is going to provide new music. We have this energy and this feeling there. So it can't be a complete train wreck.
I think people are like, I think the naysayers on this have already made up their mind, for starters.
Dude, I hate when that happens, man. Like,
yeah, I know.
Give it a chance, guys.
That's why, like, if you have nothing nice to say, or if you've already set in, then why are you going to put yourself through the cruelty of just continuing to watch it when you have that mindset, because you're never going to enjoy it, right?
It's just,
so
it's
you gotta look at it as its own thing, and I'm sure they'll have the nods, right? And they'll be like either hit or miss, right, when they do those nods, but maybe it'll find its own rhythm and stuff like that, and we can find those moments to enjoy it, right?
I think so. I think there was a statement this week that just said, we are going to try and expand some of the canon here. Oh. Keep in mind, in many respects, that's sort of what the Cowboy Bebop movie did. It was just an episode that took place somewhere in between episode 24 and 25, if memory serves me right. It was just another story to add before the climax of the original anime series. And so there'll be. So my guess is, I guess we'll hear we will get the core a take on the core story, but then they'll add little things that may add new layers to the characters that you wouldn't have thought of before. Sorry, James.
I was thinking that probably for this project too, they probably will have more of a storyline. Maybe, obviously, as we said, some of those returning villains and maybe certain characters will be worked and looked at maybe differently, but I think you'll have some stories where it won't be as episodic as we saw in the anime. There may be some of that, but I think there'll be more an underlying storyline that we'll see throughout the episodes. And not to say there wasn't underlying storyline in the anime, there was, but it was only at certain key episodes, so to speak.
But that all said, and this is my final thought on the whole thing, maybe anime music video, which I know James said on the outset. There is a part of me really wondering if this is going to be the actual opening, or this is just a teaser.
Oh, it's going to be the opening.
You think it'll be the opening? I'm not. I'm not totally convinced myself. But then again, there's that wait and see.
Yeah, true.
Because I could see how it could have really bothered a lot of people today too. It's just maybe it's too one for one, too campy, whatever. But I think, I know that Yoko Kanno is composing new pieces for this presentation, and maybe I would presume a rework of some classic themes too from the series. We just heard the original, more or less, the original version of Tank. And I'm wondering if we're going to hear some sort of rework of it, a reimagining of that song. If Kano-san herself has reimagined the song in some form. But I'm just not... Sorry?
I was going to say, I'll take English Real Folk Blues. I'd be curious.
I was going to say, we'll definitely be seeing Real Folk Blues somewhere.
And she's not above trying to do something in English. She's had her collaborators that way.
Like, it probably won't be My Yamane, but I'd be curious to see how it turns out.
Mm-hmm. And she's had her English collaborators in the past. I forgot his name off the top of my head, but yeah. So I'm not convinced that we should just go with this as the actual opening. But of course, there's more to come. On that note, before we end off this evening, and we'll talk about it more in the future, but we do have a related Cowboy Bebop note to add as we end off tonight. Mo, do you want to pitch this? Do you want to mention this?
Yep. All right. So I'm working on a little something for everyone. Hopefully be hitting the feeds in the next couple weeks, and then subsequently after that, I'm trying to keep it a surprise, I guess. But yeah, something's in the works, and be adding it to the feed at some point in the future. So look out for that, guys.
We are going to expand the Anime Roundtable / Six Talk Podcast Network universe. Mo has pitched something. We are a new show that will probably go along with Anime Roundtable. And we're going to see where it goes. But since I asked him to pitch it after talking Cowboy Bebop, there's a hint already. Or should we edit that out?
No, that's cool. That's cool.
Okay. But stay tuned for that. The others, well, James and Geoff have been pitched on it already before the recording. Kevin's going to get the pitch when I hit the stop button in a couple minutes. But does Kevin want to take a guess at it now before we go tonight?
I don't have any real guess. I have no clue what's going on because I came late. But I actually like this quote. I like this tweet that Justin Zemeckis wrote about the Cowboy Bebop Netflix theme or release. It was he said, "People like animation because the limited frame rate and detail make it surrealism by definition. Live action can be a frame-for-frame clone of the animation and still come off looking dull by comparison because it's not the same medium and can't offer the brain the same thing."
It's a fair statement.
This is
and maybe that and
oh, sorry, there's one more part of the tweet.
Okay, go ahead.
This is not an indictment of this opening. If anything, it shows they were really paying attention to the original show's style. But I remain trepidatious because Ghost in the Shell did that too. It just forgot to add a soul.
You know, I had completely forgot that they made a live-action Ghost in the Shell movie.
Forgot about Scarlett Johansson.
I think a lot of people would like to forget. Well, okay. What do you make of that tweet? Now that and I guess we'll end it off with a thought on that. What do you make of that tweet? I'm okay. I get where he's going. Sometimes animation has a certain minimalist thing, but I'm always open to interpretations anyway, and that's where this is. So, okay, and go with that mindset. But obviously I'm open to seeing what ultimately happens. I think most of us are.
You know, I think I would have liked it a little more if I wasn't directly comparing it with the animated version in my mind.
And maybe that's where the panning is coming from. But then again, that's where it's the panning, the general panning of the project too.
Yeah,
is coming from.
I do like the fact that they added some like episodic villains and they added Vicious into it too. Like, I agree with Geoff on that front. It's a nice touch. So I don't know. It just feels kind of weird because I'm just used to seeing it animated.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we're about to see another angle, almost certain. Well, thanks for making it, though, Kevin. At least in time. Glad you made it. Glad you had a good day. Does anyone else want to add anything, or should we just call it a night? Yeah, let's call it. I got more. I mean, when it comes down to it, I think I got more coffee to piss out before the end of the night.
Oh, geez.
God damn, Mike.
You're making me miss the dollar bill thing.
That's all we got for tonight. Once again, a reminder where you can contact us. animeroundtable@gmail.com, at animeroundtable, animeroundtable.com. And don't forget, word of mouth is always good, so tell your friends about this show if you think they'll like it, and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this, because any reviews, especially good ones, will help us in the algorithm and hopefully show us to others who might be able to stumble upon us. Kevin? No?
Oh, right. So, we would appreciate any high reviews, any highly rated reviews on any platform that allows you to leave a review. So that's probably just Apple Podcasts, really. Because I know Spotify doesn't let you do that. So we would also appreciate any feedback that you have for us. Please don't be scared to write into us, even if it's negative, because we would like to improve.
Yeah, this should probably get 1 or 2 stars tonight.
What did I miss? I was like, what did I miss for it to be like 1 or 2 stars?
We'll fill you in. We'll fill you in at the end. We typically do episodes once every other week, but sometimes we'll go consecutively, and I think we might in the next bit. But if you don't want to miss out, hit the subscribe button wherever you're hearing this to be notified whenever we do add something new. But that's it. So until next time, good night from Toronto. Join us again for another edition of the Anime Roundtable.